All we need is a little understanding. Walk a mile in their shoes. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life.
Welcome, everybody, to another week's episode of the Truths We Hide podcast. Today's guest is, oh my gosh, I can't wait for you to hear his story, Phil Pelucha. Mm-hmm. He's actually in the UK right now, and he'll tell you about why he's there. And he'll share his story of just the background of how he became the founding partner and CEO of Billionaires and Boxers, and how it was not easy, but he managed, he did it, and he wants to help you do it today as well. So thank you so much, Phil. I'm just truly honored that you want to share your story here with us. So,
well, you're more than welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. And as we were saying off air, you know, even if this just kind of resonates with one person who's in that place that I was, and can kind of go, well, if he can do it, then so can I, then it's well worth the time sacrifice. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we were just talking a few minutes ago, and, you know, you definitely have a powerful story to share about how you even started your own business, how it just, well, it was hard. Your mother, she served, and she's disabled. And yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah. So, UK born and raised. My mum was serving for a number of years. This is around the time of the Falklands. So she would have been stationed in Germany, Kuwait, and the Falklands for different tours. And you know, she was a drill sergeant. So for those of you who are ex-military, you know, growing up with a drill sergeant parent's quite interesting. Especially because by the time I came around, she'd been medically retired. She'd been medically discharged, and she was now settling into a new life. I've heard people on your podcast before talk about that transition of when they leave the military, and it's like, well, now what am I? And it's almost the identity crisis. And fortunately, unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, I guess I'd say fortunately because I'm here. She may say unfortunately, but she also fell pregnant around the time she was going through this very difficult challenge with me. And the relationship between my mum and dad did not last. It did not work out. So I was born into a single parent family to a disabled mother on benefits who was not ready to be a parent. And the only thing that she knew how to do was to be a drill sergeant. So it was an interesting upbringing.
It's funny because, yes, as soon as you said drill sergeant, I immediately pictured the ones that I know. And so I can imagine how strict it was.
Well, do you know, it's as you well know, having been through the system, they do it with the right intention, because it's to help you be able to respond to orders and react in ways that, you know, you have to trust that somebody above you has your back and knows better than you do what you're doing. So in the middle of conflict, in the middle of violence, in the middle of something very serious, you don't have to be trying to rationalize and make decisions in that panicky moment, because someone else is helping make those decisions for you from supposedly a greater place. But how that translates to as a parent is, I'm going to break you. I'm going to crush you, because anything you say or think that differs from me is wrong and is seen as rebellion and is seen as, you know, just downright disubordinate, sort of, you are, you know, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, her behavior towards most stuff was her reaction was either shout or violence most of the time, usually both. But, you know, even crazy things like 3 o'clock in the morning, pouring water over my head and making me go for a run because of something I'd done wrong the day before and things. So, but I had this from realistically, it's probably started from the age of maybe 6 or 7 upwards. So I had this for a long, long time. And
my
we were saying off air that she became the voice of doubt in my head. I mean, we all have that voice that is really not doing us any favors. And hopefully, if we may, I'll talk about that in a bit more detail later. But, you know, we all have that kind of subconscious mind. Well, I'd say the conscious mind is saying something to us, right? It's saying, well, you can't do this. Be careful. Do you remember what happened last time? But the problem is often those things are, you know, you could call them whatever you want. You could call them guardians. You could call them paradigms. The point is they are just replays of something that you know and you've been taught. So when you're growing up, somebody saying to you, money doesn't grow on trees. You can't have everything you want. It's like, well, yes, it does. And yes, I can. So that's the worst advice you've ever given. And do you know what's sad is it comes from people who love you. And they're not doing it out of spite. They're doing it because somebody who loved them said the same thing to them, you know. But, you know, family cult, you think about family customs, for example, you know, in my family, we give each other presents for our birthday. If in your family, you get a punch in the eye on someone's birthday, you guys might think that's completely normal. I'm going to object the second someone punched me in the eye. And it's the same kind of methodology. So she became the voice in my head for the negative stuff. And unfortunately, she would also be very verbal with it out loud as well. So whenever I try and, you know, challenge myself or rise above my station, which I think was always built in me. I always wanted to be more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to explore. That was always me. So everything I did was kind of aimed at what's next, you know, what's the next challenge kind of thing. And she'd always kind of say things like, you know, are you sure that's you? I mean, I can see other people doing that, but is that really you? I mean, you up to that? And it's all this kind of I'm not sure that's the right idea for you. I mean, do you know enough? Are you smart enough? I mean, all the things that you torture yourself with when you're in that dark place, she would out loud say them to my face. And it became, oh, well, actually, maybe, yeah, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe I can't. And it's like, well, if you're doubting it, you definitely shouldn't try it. And it's like, well, probably right. I'll just sit here then and shut up. And I ended up in a really, really dark place, like a really dark place. Number of suicide attempts in my teenage years, like quite serious attempts. It was not a please show me some love, cry for affection. It was, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's horrible when you think back to that place of pain, and it's not a pleasant place to talk about or even go to. But the reason I'm having this conversation with you here, as I said, is, you know, I absolutely adore the life that I live now. I love what I do. I have a beautiful wife. I have two beautiful, beautiful daughters who are the center of my universe. We're very happy. We get to travel the world. We get to work with amazing businesses and help people in a way that I know really adds value. And I love every single day. And I mean, I think back to where I came from and how low at that point I was. And it makes it all the more important to have conversations like this, because, you know, they say you can hear a smile. Like when I talk about billionaires in boxes and my family, like I have a big beaming smile on my face because I absolutely love what I do. And there will be people listening to this who are in a really dark place right now and probably don't feel that way about anything. Probably don't even remember what it's like to feel that way about something because they're just so lost. And, you know, I'm here to say, so was I. And I promise you, there are things that I'll share and there's things that you can do that will make this better. I promise you, you don't have to stay there.
How did you get yourself out of that dark place?
So there was two ways that I got myself out of the dark place. The first one was internal, because I think it has to be. You know, they say that change is really hard, and I actually disagree with that. It's impossible to change somebody. It's really easy to change yourself, because the second you make that decision, and I'm not talking about the nonsense you say to yourself. I'm talking about the moment that you go, that's it. You know, the moment a mother finds out she's pregnant and stops smoking instantly, despite the fact she's tried nicotine patches 6 times and still sneaks off for a sneaky smoke, but doesn't smoke the entire time that she's pregnant. I'm talking about that level of decision that has emotion involved in it, which is the trick. And we'll talk about that later. But it is exactly that. So how you do that, and I'll talk about the second stage in a minute, which is mentors, which mentors are huge, and they can take all different shapes and sizes. But I love my mentors of all different shapes and sizes and at different levels, because they've really, really, well, they've helped me to change my life, I think is the key bit. And other people can do that for you too. And honestly, you'd be so amazed. There'll be people sat there when I talk about mentors, and they'll be going, well, why would that person talk to me? Why would that person have a conversation with me? Why would that person help me? Why would that person want to spend some time with me? Am I worth it? I promise you, you will be so surprised how many people will open their hearts and resonate with you and see themselves in you 20, 30 years ago, and see it as a moral obligation to turn around and give a brother or sister a hand up because it's the right thing to do. I mean, especially given how many ex-military people there are listening to this, you guys know you're a family and a community. My first trick would be go and find the people in my city who are ex-military who are now doing really well for themselves, and get in touch with them and say, can I ask you a question? How did you do that? And how the hell do I get out of this place? Because I'm still lost having left.
Yeah.
Ask the question of someone that knows the answer. Don't ask your other idiot mates. Don't ask your family that aren't ex-military. They don't know either. So all you're doing is forming your actions and opinions based on opinions of other people who also don't know the answer. That's ridiculous. Go and ask 5 people who do know the answer. 5 ex-military, very successful ex-service people who are now doing really well, and ask them. And you'll be surprised how many of opportunities will open up, how many of them will say, well, tell you what, listen, maybe we do a call once a month and I'll mentor you. What's the challenge? Where are you trying to get to? Let's make an action plan. I promise you will be amazed how many people will open their hearts and do that for you. But to go back to the first one, which is the internal piece, you have to be ready for something different. And that's quite a brave thing to do, because whilst depression and things feels very unnatural, it's also kind of like a comfort blanket in a way. It's easier to throw yourself a pity party than it is to get out of that place. It's much easier to sit on your ass and say, well, life isn't going well for me because of him or because of her, or if I'd have got that GED, or if I'd have been, a prom queen, or no, man, it's nonsense. It's like, that's gone. It's whatever you do from now. And you know what the irony is? When you get to a certain point in your life, you'll realize this, or I certainly hope you do. All of those opportunities that you're disappointed you didn't get them because they weren't your path. You're meant for something different, something bigger, something greater. So I see it as like a massive corridor full of doors, and only one of those doors is going to be right for you. Okay. Now, some people, like me, unfortunately, get to go in and out of different rooms because the doors just seem to be open, and you stay in there for a bit and go, yeah, it sucks in here. I'm going somewhere else. Right. And I have to just keep trying loads of doors until I found BIB and I found my spiritual home, and I stayed here. Other people only get to open one door. But what you find people doing as a visual is they try 3 or 4 doors, or maybe even 10 or 11 doors. And then they sit down on the floor in the corridor and cry and go, oh, nothing's worked. None of these doors are open for me. Well, there's an entire corridor left of doors. Keep trying, because when you find the one that's right for you, I promise you, it will change everything, and life just becomes a real joy. It's not even about just the money. It's not about, the things. It's not about the possessions. It's about waking up every day with a purpose and loving what you do. And you will find that. I swear to you, you will. You just keep looking. Just don't sit down at this bit. This bit sucks. Please don't sit down.
Oh my gosh. Like I'm sitting here listening, and I can relate on so many levels. Like, I needed to hear this 3 years ago. And I'm so glad that you have stated all this, because I know I had my pity party for years. And,
yeah, me
and then
too.
Finally is when we found our aha moment, or whatever you want to call it. And you're like, holy shit, it was right there. I just didn't see it because I was over here feeling sorry for myself.
And
100%. Life's going to suck. It's going to suck more ways than you can imagine. But like you said, you have to keep trying, because it's there.
Do you know what? The only thing I always say about all these really, really successful people is that they've just failed more times than you have. So don't be afraid to fail. You know, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, if you're going to fall forward, because at least you're going in the direction you're supposed to be heading. And it's so true. I promise you, we could fill a series of podcasts talking about my business failures, my personal failures, my relationship failures, my health regime, failures. I mean, all you'd need to do is check my gym membership and see I go like 2 months a year, and you'd see those failures. There's tons of these things, and they're there, and I can laugh about them now, but they were incredibly painful at the time. They were awful moments, but I learned something from every single one of them. And the thing I wish I knew earlier was exactly that. If it didn't happen for you, it wasn't supposed to happen for you. So I'm not saying don't try. I'm not saying just sit there and wait for stuff to happen. This isn't fluffy kind of positive affirmation, sit on the sofa and someone's going to drop $1 million off. It doesn't work like that. If you really want to know the secret formula to success, it's really genuinely, really, really simple. So simple that you could genuinely overlook it. Okay. It's get your emotion right. So the way I do that is Tony Robbins priming exercise, which I do in the morning, or you can just do a nice guided meditation. There's tons of them on YouTube, and they're really powerful stuff. Okay. So you get yourself into a position where you're emotionally thinking about stuff. So I'll give you an example, right? And because again, I'm conscious there'll be people listening to this who are feeling pretty numb and feeling pretty low and pretty lost. Okay. There will have been a time in your life, and I don't even care what it is, right? But there will be a time in your life when you had an emotional response that was completely involuntary. I'm talking about hairs standing up on the back of your neck and your arms. I'm talking about goose pimples. I'm talking about the moment before your first kiss when how many kisses have we had since, right? But that moment before your first kiss, everybody can think back to that first kiss, and everybody instantly can relate to that nervous butterfly heart race moment of, oh yeah, I was so scared to kiss that person. It might be when you met your spouse. It might be when you held your child. It might be when you won the cup in high school football. It really doesn't matter what this is. The point is, it's the emotion, okay? Because when we think of a smell, let's say we walk into a room and we smell something, our brain instantly starts flying through all the times it smelt that smell to give you the memory. So you go, oh, it reminds me of my nan's house, and that's how it works. But if you want to think of it like this way, your heart memory does the same thing. So if you can put yourself in a state where you're remembering, I felt great that day. That was probably if I could go back, that was probably one of the proudest days of my life. I loved it. And your heart's swelling, right? Mm-hmm. Your heart starts to go, when else did I feel like that? I felt like this when I met her. And I felt like this when I graduated military academy and I was in my uniform, and I've never felt so big and tough and strong and proud in all my life. I'm going to serve my country and I kick ass in this uniform. I'm a sexy motherfucker. I am, I feel good. I'm never taking this uniform off. My loved one is over there looking at me, and even if they're not, I'm going to go find someone in this uniform because I am buff. Right? It's that kind of attitude. Okay. And if you put yourself into that emotional place, okay, and allow yourself to kind of build from there, I always describe it as trying things on, like trying on different hats, trying on different outfits. So from that position I've just talked to you about, I make decisions, and I make decisions by asking myself questions and trying different scenarios in my mind to see which one gives me the same emotion as that positive thing I was just thinking about. And if it doesn't, I don't do it. And if it does, I do it. And it really doesn't matter what size it is or anything. So prime example, and I mean this in the most respectful way, we're sat doing this podcast in our houses, right? I turned down 2 radio shows this morning because I wasn't interested in them. Our show goes out 30 million homes across South Africa. It's not about audience size. It's not about money. It's not about any of that nonsense. It's about which show do I resonate with? Which cause do I go, actually, I think I can add some value there and I'd really love to do so. So I'm going to go and do that. And you can do that for your own life. So if you're sat there now with no idea what to do, you are completely lost, please head over to YouTube and look for Tony Robbins morning ritual or Tony Robbins priming exercise. Okay. Please, please, please do that. I'd also highly, highly recommend, because usually when you're depressed and you're miserable and the day drags and it sucks, what does life give you when you're doing that as well? It tends to give you insomnia, so you can't sleep. So you can just have a few more hours of the day to feel miserable all by yourself. Isn't life wonderful for you? you know. But this is because this is the place that you are right now. That's what you're attracting. And I know that sucks. And I know it's a really painful thing to hear because you're not doing it deliberately. But there are some very deliberate actions that you can take that will snap you out of this. So that's what you do. You get yourself in that state, and then you start to try things on. How would I feel if I joined the fire service? How would I feel if I started a charity working from home? How would I feel if I started a family? How would I feel if I became a father, a mother? How would I feel if I sold my house and lived in a camper van driving Route 66 for the next 12 months whilst making my money travel blogging? You know, try stuff on. I mean, why the hell not? You're not a tree. Move. You know, you can do whatever you want to do. So stop limiting yourself, okay? So they're the first two stages of the equation, okay? So to recap, so you get yourself in the emotional state, and then you try stuff on in your mindset until you have something that works. So you get yourself in the right place in the heart and the right place in the head. Now, so far, this is kind of like the secret meets the stuff afterwards, right? This is kind of all self-help stuff. Here's the ingredient that a lot of people don't tell you. Take action. Don't just finish your meditation feeling pretty good, sit back on the sofa, put Ricky Lake show on and wonder why it didn't happen. You sat there not doing anything. Of course it's not going to happen. The universe responds to action, not just thought. Okay? So what you do is you put yourself into that state where you're feeling good in your heart, you can see it clearly in your head, and you go, that's where I'm going, right? Most of the time I have no idea how I'm getting there. I know where the goal is. I have no idea how I'm getting there. And there's a trick, by the way, because when you put blinkers on yourself, because you've designed the roadmap, you miss all the other people that could potentially help you and open up on incredible opportunities for you because you're solely focused on, no, it's got to be this way. Whereas if you have the goal, but you just kind of take steps towards it. So I always say, write down after meditating 3 steps, 3 actions that you're going to take that day that get you closer towards that goal that you dreamt of. Just 3. And I found something really incredible happened after that. Life started to get out of my way and started to respond and was like, okay, this is what he wants. This is what he's doing. It's what he's working for. So that's what we'll do. And I've since met some incredible people as a result, which I'm happy to talk about, and which has allowed me to create Billionaires in Boxes. You know, our goal is to empower 1 billion entrepreneurs, and we're not doing that lightly. You know, we've got Billionaires in Boxes Africa, Billionaires in Boxes India. I mean, it grows every day. I often say that this was my idea. It's not my idea anymore. It's kind of this living thing that I'm just trying to do my best to take good care of and help as many people as I can. But the second thing that happened, and this was honestly for me was a miracle because I'd never had this ever since I was a child. I sleep like a baby, completely naturally. And the reason I sleep like a baby is I'm so tired by the time I get into bed that actually what I used to do in bed was punish myself with all the reasons I shouldn't be going to sleep. So you haven't paid the mortgage off yet. How can you be possibly going to sleep and rest when you've still got to pay this bill and you've still got to do this and you haven't done that and you've still got to do this? And that's what my brain would do. So I would just lay awake. I'd lay in the bed completely awake, miserable, torturing myself in the middle of the night. Now I go to bed and I go, what did I think about this morning after that meditation? And I'm remembering the meditation. Now I'm remembering the feeling. Now I'm remembering the emotion. So I'm feeling really positive about it. And then I go, oh yeah, I wanted to do this, this, and this today. Yeah, I did it. Okay, that's cool. So no matter what else happened today, it could have been the worst day in the world. I could have had an argument with my wife. Someone could have quit. I mean, it could be awful. I mean, that stuff doesn't really happen, but it could be absolutely horrific, right? It could be really bad. In 12 months' time, I won't remember any of that. I'll just be grateful for the fact that I took 3 steps closer towards the goal that I'm now living. And that's the way I see it. So you get into bed and it's like my brain goes, you did a good job today. Yeah, you did what you said you were going to do. All right, yeah, I feel pretty good. And of course, what's the last thing I'm thinking about before I go to sleep? It's the dream, it's the vision. So then I go and dream about it. And then I get up in the morning feeling good having just dreamt about it. And then I go and prime myself and put myself in an even better place. So I'm even more pumped up and ready to go. And then I start creating from there. And good things happen. Good things come from that place.
Wow. No, I am so glad that you told me about this, Tony Robbins, because a lot of people just don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to, everybody hears about it, but no one's actually done it. So for you to say, go to Tony Robbins, find his morning ritual. It's going to help you. That's a start. And I hope the listeners are, because I know tomorrow morning I'm turning it on. So I can
I promise you, I certainly would. I love it. And here's another one that people can try as well. When you're people talk about talking to yourself and affirmations and all that kind of stuff. Now, the hard thing to do affirmations when you're depressed is you don't believe the stuff you're saying, and there has to be an element of belief with it. There has to be an element of emotion to it. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just lying to yourself out loud, in the mirror crying, I feel beautiful, I'm so happy. It's like, yeah, you look delighted, So what I'd suggest to people is to do something else, okay? There's loads of the videos like this on YouTube too, but it's called about creating an alter ego, right? Now, I'm not talking about, creating a schizophrenic person who lives in your head and tells you what to do and tells you to play with matches. I am not advocating mental health. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, if you're not ready right now to kind of do this for yourself, if you don't have enough self-belief and self-confidence in yourself to do this, then be someone else for a bit, And I know that sounds awful, but, I did it with myself. So I did it with my future self. Some people actually have a character. They have a person who it's like they become an actor. And while they're at work, it doesn't matter that they're going through a divorce. They are this absolute machine at work Yeah. And it's just the way they are. That's their alter ego. It's like putting on a mask. And sometimes that's helpful. It's not helpful to live in that state forever, but sometimes it's helpful to do that, because wearing that mask allows you to go and experience the positive feelings and emotions that the person in that mask deserves. But who's feeling them? It's you. You're feeling them. So now you're feeling these positive things that as you just a few days ago weren't a possibility. And it's a beautiful thing. So I use the future me. I said to myself, okay, I see this big party. It's a huge black tie event, and we throw this huge party when we reach 1 billion entrepreneurs empowered. And I can't wait, right? So whenever I have self-doubt, or whenever I start to question myself or hear my mother in my head or any of that kind of stuff, I put myself in the shoes of that person on that stage, thanking everybody for their involvement and saying, this is amazing. And I get the amazing, powerful feeling that comes with that. And I say, what would he do in this situation? How would he react to this? Let's ignore where we are right now. If I had 10,000 people working for me and I was making this decision as to whether or not we were going to move into India, what would I say? And I'd say, yes, so let's do it, because it doesn't matter that I don't have 10,000 people working for us yet. We're going to do it because it feels right, so let's do it. And, none of us know how long we're going to be here. The only thing that's certain in life is death and taxes. So I've kind of stopped doing the whole, yeah, I like that, we'll do that next year. Well, what if I don't have it next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, you are so much more than where you are right now. You right now are just a product of your circumstances. But the thing is, that can be for good or it can be for evil. Right now, you're probably listening to this on this podcast, finding yourself in a bit of a shitty place and wondering how you got here and beating yourself up about it. I promise you, it's just the sequencing that happened. This isn't you. It's the circumstances around you that have happened. You've taken them on and you've kept them. But the good news is it's a choice to let them go too.
That is so true. Now, how old were you when you decided enough was enough? I need to listen to my own voice and not my mother's to be better than I know I can.
Good question. So I'm blessed that mine, I think, came a bit early. I was in my late 20s, so I wasn't a spring chicken, but I wasn't particularly old either. But if I'm honest, I think it came to a head. I tell you what, I'll word it this way: it would probably still have been going on had I not have got married, because my wife would not stand for the way she put me down. There was no way. She's a strong South African woman, and she's very opinionated, and I love her for it. And there was no way that was going to slide, which kind of empowered me as well, because it was sort of a strange feeling of, why is this person putting so much confidence in me? Like, what do they see that I don't see? And it made me start to question myself. So it happened in my late 20s, and I was married and we'd had a baby by this point. And it was becoming really hard to become the breadwinner who was kind of providing at work. And I was providing. I'd climbed the corporate ladder and I was doing pretty well at this point. And I had a few of my businesses of my own and I was doing pretty well. But it was also small scale. And if I'm honest, I hated like at least two of my businesses. I absolutely hated. I didn't like what we did. I mean, we did a good job, but it just didn't resonate with me. You know, I was doing it because I needed money. So we did it and people seemed happy. So we kept doing it. But I wasn't happy. In fact, that's one of the things that happened at COVID. Actually, some of the stuff that I had left over, like kind of like remnants of things that I didn't want. It was like we had a huge clear out, businesses, house, and otherwise. When COVID happened, it was like, don't want it, not doing it. But my daughter really kind of changed everything for me because, you know, I don't know what it's like to be a mum. I can't speak from experience about what it's like to be a mum, but I can speak from experience what it's like to be a dad. And I know the moment you first hold your child changes everything inside you. And if it doesn't, it bloody should. Because it's suddenly this huge weight of responsibility. And every parent has this thing where they want their child to do better than they did, right? Some people handle that better than others. Some people become very pushy parents. Some people are sort of like, go free my child and hopefully do well. You know, but I was looking at this child going, I'm going to do the same thing to her if I don't put this shit down. If I don't put this baggage down, because I don't know how to parent other than what I'm being shown by her. So I'm going to either be the same parent and I'm going to ruin this beautiful little baby girl's life just by being a screw up because that's how I've been taught to parent. Or I'm going to put that down. I'm going to distance it. And I always love that rule of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I went and found people who were absolutely kick-ass fathers so I could learn to be a dad because I had no idea what a dad looked like. I didn't know how a dad was supposed to behave. I knew how a mum that I didn't want to be behaved, but I didn't know you don't know what you don't know. So I went and hung out with 5 people who were amazing fathers. 2 of them almost kind of adopted me as a result, which was kind of beautiful. And we're like, well, one of us now, and you come. And our family circle just grew even bigger. I'd say my family is probably 50% made up of people who aren't my bloodline, if I'm completely honest. And I love that. Absolutely adore it. But it was difficult to get to that point. But I think, as you said it earlier, there's a moment where you just, it's tipping point. It's like you can't go back at this point, right? It's like somebody or something wakes you up, right? So it's like, imagine you're sat in a paddling pool in your garden and the paddling pool's full of sharp nails. And then someone comes out and says, what are you sitting in there for? It's really painful. And you go, oh shit, I got no idea. It's a good point. It is kind of painful here. And it's literally as silly as that. That moment is just wham. It's like reality hits you in the face. And that might come in the form of some tough love. It used to come in the form of tough love for me. I love tough love, right? Because most importantly, it comes with love, right? That's the important thing to remember here. Tough love for military people is usually a pretty good idea as well because they like to respond to that kind of stuff. But you just want to say to some people, and I swear I'd have loved to have said it to myself, stop throwing yourself a pity party. Stop choosing to be the victim and choose something else. Otherwise, stop moaning about it because you're choosing this right now. Somebody or something shit or a bad situation might have put you in this situation, but you're still in it because of you. You had the choice the very next day to go, that was a shit day yesterday, and start rebuilding. And for whatever reason, maybe you couldn't, maybe you wouldn't, whatever, you didn't. And now you're here. But that's a choice. You can get out of this place. And I desperately want people to realize that. So if I may, just to go back to the mentor point, my mentors have been brilliant. And there are so many people out there. I personally am putting this out there. If anybody would like to talk to me, I'm happy to have a chat. If more importantly, I'm happy to introduce you to other people that I think might be able to help and put you on that right path. We like to describe it as, I can't walk the path for you, but I can make it a much easier ride. So if you choose to walk that path, I'll help you every step of the way, but I can't choose it for you.
Yeah.
You know, but please, it doesn't matter who it is. Just, I think about it as upgrading, right? So upgrade yourself. So if you want to be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, stop spending time with losers. Stop spending time at home or by yourself, because you know who you spend the most time with? You, and you're a bum right now. So of course you're going to be a bum. You're spending time with a bum. Don't. Go and spend time with other people. Think about the person who you want to be, right? This is what I do. Maybe map it out into 5 areas of your life. How much money you want to make, how you'd like to dress, what car you'd like, what industry you'd like to be in, and how healthy you'd like to be, right? Just dream big, right? Now go and find a mentor for each of those 5 areas who already has the thing that you're aiming to do. They already have that car. They already have that company. They already have that life. They already have that body and that whatever. And go and spend time with them. Introduce yourself. Don't be afraid. Even if it's just a message online, it's never been easier. Just send someone a LinkedIn message or a Facebook message and say, listen, cards on the table, ex-military, finding myself in a bit of a tough period at the moment. I'm trying to get myself out of it real hard. And the reason I'm reaching out to you is you drive my dream car, so you're obviously doing something right, my man. So I just wanted to say, awesome with the car. I would love a conversation with you to learn a bit more about how you got there. If you could share any wisdom, I'd certainly be grateful, brother. And the one promise I can give you is, as soon as I'm in a better place to do so, I'll pay it forward and do it for somebody else. You'll be amazed how many people say yes, and it will change your life. It will change your life. But don't expect a pity party. Don't expect these people to get on the phone and listen to half an hour of you talking about how bad it was, or your friend, or how you came back and your wife was cheating. They do not give a shit, because that's the past. They're trying to help you build a future, not trying to join you in your pity party. So it's going to be, right, things suck at the minute. Let's not stay here. How do we build out of this place? And they're the mentors that you want, I promise you.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think when I was going through my own self-healing journey, I lost people, and it was hard, but I feel that it was for a reason, because now I'm surrounded by people who are helping me get to where I'm supposed to be, not putting me in that place where I shouldn't have been.
100%.
And I think that's hard for, especially some of us who are, I'll be 45. So it's hard when you come to this stage in your life and you're like, I can't believe that I'm involved in this drama. Like, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah, it's not good for you.
I'm too old for this shit. Yeah.
Well, it just doesn't resonate with you. It's like, it's not what you want to be doing. It's like, the last thing I want to be doing is having a fight with you right now. Like, this isn't good for anybody.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with, is to see the potentially difficult side of a positive situation. So people talk about asking the universe for things, right? I'm a huge believer in that. So right now, a lot of people are asking it for more drama and more stress, because that's the state that they're in. So that's the emotional frequency they're putting out. It's not a request. You're not saying it. You're not thinking it. It's the emotional state you're in. So think of it as a frequency. It just attracts more of the same thing. So that's why you need to raise your frequency. But what people don't realize is that actually, whilst that can often take the form of things arriving in your life and people arriving in your life, and like those of you that are listening to this right now, you think it's a coincidence you're listening to this right now? There's no such thing as a coincidence. There's no such thing as, what is a coincidence that 2 people 10,000 kilometers apart are having this conversation right now? No, it's not a coincidence. It's happening when it's supposed to be happening, for a reason. And that's a really cool thing to look at. But the opposite is also true, which is you have to put stuff down that you can't take with you to the next bit. And sometimes that's people. Sometimes that's people. Sometimes that's relationships. Sometimes that's marriages. Sometimes that's careers. Sometimes that's a house and a wealth and everything. And you have to lose everything to rebuild. Because, I like to describe it as, if you want to build, a skyscraper 5-star hotel on this plot of land that is you, but right now is built this shack, right? You're going to have to knock the shack down and build better foundations. Otherwise, the hotel is going to fall over. And when you break the shack, you're going to have to break some windows and doors and smash some drywall, and shit's going to get broken, right? That's not always the cleanest and the nicest thing. But just know that if that's happening, it's because you're going through a point of transition, which is why I use the analogy of sitting down again. Don't get halfway through smashing up the shack and then sit down on the embers of the floor and go, what a mess this is. Why am I here? Because your construction, your hotel, your 5-star mansion is still not being built because you're sat down feeling sorry for yourself that the shack's half broken. It's that simple.
Yeah, that is so true. And it's hard, but you have to keep getting back up. Otherwise, this is
100%.
going to be in the same position you've always been. And
100%.
yeah, oh my gosh, I love
You have
that.
to achieve different, to achieve different results, you have to take different actions.
Yeah.
So every day, try and do one thing that you've never done before, one thing completely new. Even if that's the one thing of try and speak to at least one new person every single day. And I don't just mean like nip to the shops and have a good chat with the cashier lady. I mean like make a list of 50 people that you would love to speak to in a month and go at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like why the hell not?
Yeah.
Why not you? Why can't you be that person? Tony Robbins, we talked about him before. He talks about how he slept in his car and how he had no money and how he was completely broke. And look at him now. Why not you? Why can't that be you? He's not superhuman. He doesn't have anything that you don't have. He just got off his ass and did something about it exactly the same way that you can. And I promise you, there's never been more support for you. And as a global network, it's never been easier to put your hat in the ring and say, this is what I want to do. And if you want to do that as an entrepreneur, I may actually be probably one of the best people for you to speak to. Come and say to me, listen, I've got this crazy idea and I want to do this, because I know a lot of people who have great, crazy ideas and I can plug you in with them too.
I love that, because now I'm going to talk to you about that.
Yeah, you can.
I have crazy ideas and I want to do it.
You must.
I love that you had mentioned earlier. I think some of us, we fall into that imposter syndrome of wanting to be or wanting to do something else. But I think what I love you had said was, if it's meant for you to do that, you will do it. It'll come when it's time. We need to just have patience, but we also need to keep working for our dreams. And I think I've fallen into that trap quite a few times, but I've also realized I know I am at where I'm supposed to be, and I'm not going to try to be somebody else. I can't. 100%. And I think it's so important for a lot of us to realize these days is that it'll happen. It will. What is meant for us.
Yeah, and I think you've just got to keep trying doors, haven't you? You just got to you got to keep taking the action and keep trying. And I think that's what a lot of people don't do, is they sit down and they feel sorry for themselves because the first few didn't work. You could look at it as sort of a swimming. Imagine a big mighty river and it's strong, and you can either just go with the flow and it's beautiful and it's easy and you're just going to go the way the river curves because that's the way it's going, or you can swim really, really hard against the current and still end up going the direction you're going, just a lot slower. Yeah. I kind of see that as, let's say, the breakdown of a marriage. You can try and hold on to the embers of that relationship for another 2 years. All you've done is waste your time. You're still heading that way. It's still going to end. You're still going where you're supposed to be going. Now you're just 2 years slower than you should have been because you didn't take that decision. You didn't do that. Why? Because it's scary. And it's okay to love someone at a period of your life and then move on without them. It's okay. It's okay that your paths were aligned at that point and now they're not. That doesn't make you or them a bad person. Right. It just means that your journeys aren't aligned anymore. So go and find who it is aligned with, because that magical, special feeling you felt with them when it was aligned, you can feel that again, even stronger, even better with somebody else. So listen, people can live with whatever life they choose to live. It's as simple as that. And I know it sounds so flaky when people say that. I would have been the biggest cynic listening to people say that. I would have been, yeah, of course. But, it's always a cliche when people say it, but genuinely, if I can do it, there's absolutely no reason that you can't do this. I should have been in prison. I should be dead. Statistically, I went to the first school in the UK that had metal detectors on the door and I was kicked out of 15. That should kind of tell you how I was in school. I was always in trouble. I was fortunate that I didn't live in the major city. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure I would have been arrested quite a lot as well. The only reason I wasn't arrested is that the police didn't really come out to my area. But everybody I was a pain, I was a complete pain. I was miserable. I was really miserable. So I just kind of lashed out of the world. I hated me more than anybody else. But I was just so miserable. And you don't have to stay in that place. You really don't. And it becomes a choice. And I swear, life just becomes so much easier when you go with the flow. Just stop fighting it.
That's true.
Just, like that guy said, this is not the end of your journey. It's really not,
Yes.
It's really, really not. Do you know what? If you were supposed to die right now, you'd be dead right now. You'd be taking your last breath. You don't need to think about suicide. You don't need to think about self-harming. You don't think about doing any of that stuff, because if it was meant to be happening, if you were meant to have a big gash on your leg, you'd have a gash on your leg. If you were meant to be taking your last breath, you'd be taking your last breath. You're not. You're still here. So there's still something you're supposed to be doing. So don't just sit there, because it's not going to come to you in your lounge or in your bed while you're sleeping until 11, 12 in the middle of the day. It's not going to come find you. It's not. But it's out there, because that's why you're still here. So go find it.
That's amazing. That is so true. I love that. Oh my gosh. So tell us real quick about the Billionaires in Boxers.
So Billionaires in Boxers is a global entrepreneur network. We use broadcasting and podcasting a lot to kind of reach people. So in essence, it's a group of people who are all about empowering others. I think I said to you earlier, I had a number of businesses that I used podcasting to grow sales and business development for, mostly because I'd used podcasting before from a sports angle. So I'd used it previously. But actually, I didn't know enough about digital marketing to be able to go and sell my business that way. And I hated cold calling, so I wasn't going to do it that way. So I made a list, between 50 and 100 of the top companies that I wanted to work for. And I went and asked as many of their CEOs onto a podcast as possible. And I asked them two simple questions. Who are you and how did you get to where you were? And what does the future hold for your company? And most people came on. And to be honest, I couldn't work with any more than 10 of them. It was just me at the time. I ended up scaling that particular business to 25 people remote all over the world, delivering projects for me, because it just blew up. So for about 5 or 6 years now, I've realized that nobody's actually that interested in my other businesses. Everybody just wants to know how I did it with the podcast. So we've now been coaching and consulting people how to do that. Some people are existing podcasters and we teach them how to monetize it. Other people are businesses and they want to stand out. We still do a lot of work across North America and the UK in terms of helping, but our passion is really kind of learning the lessons we've been doing for 6, 7, almost 10 years now, I guess, actually, in terms of podcasting in the West, and teaching that to businesses in India and Africa whose podcast market is about 17, 18 years behind that of the West. So we're almost, that dream everybody has of, wouldn't it be cool if we could go back in time and design Microsoft? It is kind of like that for me. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if we could go to a market that's 17, 18 years behind all of this and give them all the stuff that makes us winners in those markets?
Yeah. Wow.
So that's what we do. And then we plug them into amazing people. We're blessed to work with, I'm sure you've heard of The Secret and seen The Secret movies. Mm-hmm. Many of the stars from The Secret movie are doing live events with us across Africa and India. We're doing some movies with them, which is really cool. Wow. We're partnered very closely with them. Marie Diamond, for a start, is an absolute superstar. Dr. Travis Fox, who's actually my personal mentor. He's a good friend as well, a dear friend. He's the world's leading passive income coach. I mean, these are Doug Vermeeren, who's the creative producer, director behind the prequels to The Secret and How Thoughts Become Things and all that kind of beautiful stuff. I mean, these guys are awesome. And Marie is just amazing. I absolutely love Marie Diamond. She's brilliant. There's some really, really awesome people that just want to do good and want to help people. And one of the things that we've been able to really do is kind of plug people into that and say, you know what, you ready to make that change? We can roll out the red carpet for you. Look at the people we can bring to this. A friend of mine, he's going through a separation. I don't think he knew he was going through a separation, but he's going through a separation when his wife left. And it was like, oh, this sucks. And suddenly his whole world just fell apart and they have a child and it was a real mess. And, within half an hour of finding out about that, he was on the phone to Dr. Travis Fox. I'd made the introduction. Travis said, I'll clear my diary. I'll jump on a call. Travis spent about an hour. I mean, he charges thousands for this, but Travis gave it for free and spent hours on this call helping, because Travis himself has been through relationship breakups and understands kind of how to rebuild from that place. And he ended up giving him a couple of $1,000s worth of free courses and was like, listen, this is my 3-week course for this. It'll get you in a better mindset, brother. Go and do it. And that's the kind of people we're working with, which is why I was so keen to come on the network when I was listening to your shows and seeing what you did, to say, if anybody wants that hand up, I'm here. because it was given to me, and it's my duty and responsibility to do it to others, and it will be an absolute honor and privilege.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I just love what you do, and
Me
how you
too.
got and how you got here, and just your whole story. And I thank you so much for taking the time to be on here to share it, because it's hard. It's hard to talk about that stuff. It's hard to admit it. It's hard to start over. It's just hard.
I think I think you have to own who you are. So
yeah.
I think as long as you're trying to hide something from the world, you're just pretending to be somebody else. But
yeah,
the day that, I mean, look, I there was a period I wouldn't have. My wife didn't know most of the stuff that happened in my childhood because it wasn't something I was comfortable talking about. And now it's like, I mean, I don't enjoy talking about it, but now it just feels like everything else because it's just a part of the journey. Somebody asked me the other day, if you could go back and fix one mistake that you've made, what would it be? And I said, despite all the negative things that have happened, I wouldn't change anything, because what if something I changed meant I didn't meet my wife, or I didn't have my daughters, or I didn't meet the people that made Billionaires in Boxes possible, or I never got to that job in South Africa, so I didn't get to see how much I love Africa. And I didn't do that podcast with that guy from India, so he fell in love with what we were doing and created Billionaires in Boxes India. Like, I can't change what happened before. All I can do is build from it. But the first thing you have to do is acknowledge what it is. You have to know where you are to know where you're going. And that's a painful place right now. But you know what? 2-3 steps a day, I promise you, baby steps, you'll get there. And the momentum actually does it for you. Momentum does this incredible thing of you take a couple more steps and you're good to go.
Yeah, you are so right. That is so true. I love all of it. Thank you so much for being on here and sharing this. I'm so motivated.
Good. It's been an absolute pleasure. It really has been an absolute pleasure. And we must absolutely hook up another call. I'll bring on one of my guys. We'll do a call off air as well. Let's talk about your crazy ideas, because honestly, Billionaires in Boxes was the craziest idea I've ever had, and it just so happens that the rest of the world's fallen in love with it as much as I did. So yes, let's go for it.
Absolutely. I would love it. Absolutely love it.
It's done. Consider it done.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It was an honor to have you on here, and thank you so much for doing what you do.
A real privilege. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a great one.
You too.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thank you for listening to the Truths We Hide podcast, created and founded by your host, Annette, the founder of A Wild Ride Call Life. Also, a big thank you to all of our sponsors for each and every episode that is aired. We have so much support from them and all of our listeners. You can find more information at www.awildridecalllife.com.